Kurukshetra as a speaker for this session, and I also welcome all the participants. And I hope the talk of Dr. Rajneesh will be very fruitful and beneficial for the participant, and all of us will enjoy the session in next 2 hours. So thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Rajneesh, for accepting our invitation once again.
My
Earlier,
pleasure, sir.
20 days of 2 FDP of 2 week, and we have nicely organized. So again, thank you very much, Professor Rajneesh, accepting our invitation and given the time for this session also. So now I pleased to introduce Dr. Rajneesh Kaushal. Dr. Rajneesh Kaushal is presently working as an assistant professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering of NIT Kurukshetra since last 7 years. Prior to the post, he had been working as assistant professor in Mechanical Engineering Department of UIET Kurukshetra University, and he has more than 13 years of teaching experience with different institute of repute. He is holding many important administrative and academic responsibility in his present institute. He has published more than 50 papers in various journals, conferences of national and international repute. Dr. Rajneesh also organized one international conference at National University of Singapore in June 2019. He had organized 26th in a series of a national conference on internal combustion engine and combustion at NIT Kurukshetra in November 2019 under the aegis of the Combustion Institute. He has been awarded with a Certificate of Outstanding Reviewer of 2017 by the Elsewhere. Recently, he has been uh, honored with the Rosalind Member of London Journals Praise, and Dr. Rajneesh has authored 4 book chapters with Springer. During his almost 14 years of teaching career, he has taught almost all the major subjects of mechanical engineering. Recently, he has developed a state-of-the-art lab named as Advanced Thermal Engineering Lab at NIT Kurukshetra. He is the professor in charge of the lab. His research interests are thermal engineering, experimental heat and mass transfer, solar thermal energy, renewable energy, liquid desiccant air conditioning, bioenergy. He has given many expert lectures in and out of the parent institute on various topics related to heat transfer, air conditioning, renewable energy, and waste to energy. Presently, he is supervising 7 PhDs. One PhD degree has been awarded, and one PhD thesis is submitted so far. He has guided 32 MTech dissertations. Dr. Rajneesh has been working on a research project titled Design and Development of a Hybrid Powered Liquid Desiccant System for Air Conditioning and Fresh Water Production, funded by SERB DST Government of India. He has also published 2 patents, namely solar heat collectors and dehumidifier regenerator apparatus with the Indian Patent Office, Government of India. So this is the brief introduction of Dr. Rajneesh Kaushal, and thank you, sir. Thank you, and once again welcome you for this session as a speaker. Thank you, sir, and over to Professor Satan.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir, for wonderful introduction of Dr. Rajneesh. In fact, he is a wonderful person. He is a very good researcher, handling so many projects, and he enjoys a very good reputation as a faculty as well among the students. So, with that note, it is with great pleasure, Dr. Rajneesh, I invite you for your session. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Satan, and for the kind words and believing in me once again, probably for the 7th time or 6th time. And thank you, Dr. Jakhat, for nicely introducing me. So, having a pure mechanical engineering background, I'm very much interested in the area of bioenergy, as Dr. Jakhat already said, or you can say the waste to energy. So we the humans are blessed with the nature and plentiful of natural resources. But because of our vested interests, we have been continuously exploiting the nature and in turn disturbing the ecology. So keeping the thing in mind, I have started working in the area of green energy while implementing the concepts of
हेलो
engineering and
रजनीश सर
technology. Yes, Ravi.
सर आपने मोबाइल और लैपटॉप दोनों से कर रखा है, दोनों से किसी एक को मत कर दें।
अच्छा, दोनों से आवाज आ रही है?
यस सर
Am I audible now?
यस सर ऑडिबल सर।
Okay. Now laptop is working.
यस ओके सर
So I was discussing about my interest area. The area like I'm working, I have started working in the area of bioenergy or waste energy since last more than 5 years only. And I was talking about the nature and the plentiful of natural resources we are blessed with. So, but because of our vested interests, we continuously exploiting the nature and in turn disturbing the ecology. So keeping the thing in mind, I have started working in the area of green energy while implementing the concepts of engineering and technology. After all, energy is essential to life. Sun directly or indirectly the source of all energy available on Earth. So our energy choices and decisions impact Earth's natural systems in ways we may not be aware of. So it is essential that we choose our energy sources carefully. Energy can be generated using renewable sources which are freely available all around. Energy is in the air, it is in the water, it is in the sunlight, and even in the waste we create in our households, in industries, in hospitals, and everywhere. The thing is to apply the best of technology to utilize these renewable sources without harming the nature. In fact, handling the huge waste has become a challenge for almost every municipality. The waste not only affect the health of living beings, but also has harmful effects on our environment and ecology. The use of biomass resources is very much important because particularly in poor rural areas, the cost of renewable energy projects will absorb a significant part of participants. Small incomes and biofuels are important because they replace petroleum fuels. Biomass fuels can be used as substitute for fossil fuels to generate heat, power, or chemicals. So, as Dr. Jakhar already has explained or briefed about my profile, so with this background, I will move around the background only, my profile only. So I will straightway go to my presentation. Is it visible? Ravi, is it visible?
यस सर
And I am audible also?
यस सर
Okay. So my topic is waste to energy, as I already explained in my introduction, background part. So to begin with my presentation, I have some statistics to discuss with you. So in India, we have around 500 metric tons of biomass available per year, and around 17,500 megawatt can be produced from this biomass, as you can see. So collectively, we have huge potential. So as you can see, the word demograph as well. So it's like in western part, US and Brazil and along with Alaska. So they are the largest producer of the biofuels, and based on the renewable and natural resources only, bioresources only, I would say. So utilizing the biomass sources in a, we have basically three routes. First route is these are the major routes: thermochemical conversion, then biochemical conversion, then chemical conversion. So in first route, biomass is converted into syn gas or the producer gas, and the route is through pyrolysis or gasification. I will touch this particular route in brief, but in detail I will be discussing second route, that is the biochemical conversion, that is anaerobic digestion, or it is known as fermentation as well. So finally, the product is the biogas. And thirdly, we have the chemical conversion. And the processes involved are the transesterification or hydroprocessing to get the final product as a biofuel. So there is a huge flexibility in the first route, that is the gasification. Gasification, after gasification of the biomass, we have the two options like medium heating value gas or low heating value gas. So we have different applications of these producer gas or syngas. Like if we have medium heating value gas, it depends upon the type of feedstock material we are using, how much is the heating value of the feedstock material being used in the gasification, and depend on the other parameters as well, like what type of technologies you are using. Like there are so many types of gasifiers, which gasifier you are using, and what temperature range you are in. So I'll be discussing in brief about the different parameters which affect the the quality of the and as well as the quantity of the producer gas or this syngas. So once we get the medium heating value gas, we have the options to convert this medium heating value gas into electricity using turbine. So using Brayton cycle. So people from mechanical background, they must be knowing about the Brayton cycle. The gas turbine works on this Brayton cycle. So electricity can be used with this option. Secondly, we can use the medium heating value gas to convert it into hydrogen, alcohol, and alcohol-based fuels after synthesis. Thirdly, we can directly use the medium heating value gas in engines to convert it into electricity. Or we have other options as well. So once we have the mechanical power out of the engine, uh, where we are utilizing the medium heating value gas, along with the conventional fuel, of course. So purely we cannot use the medium heating value gas. So I'll discuss this particular route in detail with my experimental facility at NIT. So second option is the low heating value gas. Again, we can use the low heating value gas in engines to convert it into different applications like electricity and mechanical power is there. Of course, the efficiency will not be much in this case as compared to the previous one, that is the medium heating value gas. Of course, the calorific value or the heating value is more in case of medium heating value gas as compared to the low heating value gas. So second option is with the low heating value gas is utilization of low heating value gas in the boilers to get the process steam. So we have other applications as well of this particular route. Thirdly, we can use this low heating value gas to convert it into ammonia after synthesis. So the second route, the biogas, but biogas is basically it is much like natural gas, and it has so many applications. Nowadays, focus is being given on the mobility, vehicle mobility. So we can compress the biogas and fill it into the cylinders. So before filling it into the cylinder, we need to remove the unwanted gases. So what basically the biogas is basically the composition is like mainly we have methane and water. So methane ranges from 50 to 75%, water ranges from 0 to 10%, CO2 ranges from 25 to 55%. Hydrogen sulfide, which is very not so good and it is very harmful. It is always suggested to remove this gas before filling into the cylinder. So it ranges in the trace amount 1 to 3% only, but it is very harmful. Ammonia is also not so good. It ranges from 0 to 1%. Nitrogen ranges from 0 to 5. Oxygen is from 0 to 1%, and hydrogen is 0 to 1%. So before filling it into the cylinders, we need to remove these unwanted gases. We are more concerned with the methane. So, more is the methane value, better will be the quality of the biogas. So how the biogas can be made? we can make the biogas with the help of any organic waste. So generally we have, as I already told, the scenario or the status of the biomass availability in India. So we are having huge potential, but we are not using these resources. Like we are having these biomass resources available in the form of waste. So why not to utilize this waste and to convert it into useful energy? So any organic material can be used in conversion into biogas. So this is just an illustration to explain the working of a biogas plant. Like this is the main digester plant, and suppose there are cattle in rural areas, we have the option to have some plentiful of biomass. So cattle waste and these livestock waste and can be used as a slurry material, and the household waste can also be used as a slurry material. So slurry is basically the mixture of water and this lime waste. Okay. So it should have some liquidity so that it can be uh, have some movement, easy movement through the digestion. So this is the main digester. So after digestion process, the bacteria will digest the feed scope or the slurry within a particular span, which is known as hydraulic retention time. So after consumption of this bio waste, the gas is produced. The gas can be used in the household, and the digestate will move to the displacement tank by the fresh charge. So fresh charge is heavy in weight, and as the digestate is digested by the bacteria, it will be lighter in weight. So it will be easily moved to the displacement tank. So this digestate is having good quality of good fertilizer. So it has a good values of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which are good for which are required for crops. So it has good qualities of fertilizer. So it has like the beauty is that nothing is waste in this process. Everything is a product and can be used. Okay, so the sizes ranges from several thousand cubic meters to small household type. And this is a like schematic diagram just to understand the working of like anaerobic digestion plant. We can say the composting as well, because composting is the inbuilt part. So initially the waste is recepted in the reception area, and then it is processed in the process modules. Pre-processing, we can give the name as a pre-processing. So sometimes the feedstock material is required to be mechanically, chemically, or thermally pre-treated depending upon the condition of the feedstock material. Okay, like in seasons, certain seasons we have like availability of rice straw, wheat straw, rice husk, and other baggage kind of waste material. So these particular materials require some special kind of pre-treatment so that it can be easily digested in the digester. So after digestion, the main product is the biogas, which is taken out from the digester tank, and the digestate is moved to the composting area. So these are the reactor tanks, 3 reactor tanks. So after that, the maturation boxes are there, where we'll ensure that there is no gas still retained in the digestate. It will not affect the environment. Okay. So after that, it will go to the screening of this compost, so that any hard material or solid material is taken out. So finally, we have the two products. One is the biogas, and second is the compost. The main processes involved in this biodigestion process is the hydrolysis. We have 4 phases. In first phase, that is hydrolysis, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are converted into sugars, fatty acids, and amino acids. Then in the second phase, that is known as acidogenesis, these sugars, fatty acids, amino acids are converted into carbonic acids and alcohols, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide and ammonia. in the third stage, that is known as acetogenesis, they are converted into hydrogen, acetic acid, and carbon dioxide. Finally, in the methanogenesis stage, we have the main product, that is methane, and along with the carbon dioxide, and with the trace amounts of the other gases, like I already mentioned. So collectively, all the phases are known as hydraulic reaction time, HRT. So what are the other affecting parameters? First and foremost important parameter is the temperature. So in any area where we are supposed to deploy this biogas plant, we need to know about the environmental conditions. Okay. So in thermophilic, we have divided it into three categories. First is the mesophilic category. First is the psychrophilic, where the temperature ranges below 20 degrees C. So it is not suggested to deploy the biogas plant in these areas where the climatic conditions are below 20 degrees C, or the region is known as psychrophilic. Okay, because as a temperature is very important parameter, and bacteria survives in a particular range of temperature. So if we want to deploy a biogas plant in this psychrophilic region, so we need to give a certain environment, like it should have a temperature from 20 above 20 or 25 degrees C. So externally we need to provide some heating arrangement. Okay, so then we have second range is mesophilic, and the range is very good, and bacteria survives for so long in this particular range, and the range is from 20 or 25 degrees C to 45 or 50 degrees C. And beyond that, the region or the zone is known as thermophilic zone. So where the temperature ranges above 45 or 50 degrees C. Bacteria doesn't survive for so long in this particular range, but the rate of production is very high. So the biogas production rate is very high in thermophilic zone. If you want to have the highest rate of production, but you are not, we have the plentiful of biomass resources, but the main concern is of the production rate of the biogas. So we need to have thermophilic range of temperature to be maintained inside the digester plant. Second is the pH. So pH should be very well maintained inside the digester plant, and the working range is from 6.4 to 7.8. And though through our experiments at our lab level facilities, we have observed the best pH is 7 and 7.1. So we should maintain this particular value. We have some certain chemical methods and some natural methods are also there to maintain pH during anaerobic digestion process. Then we have hydraulic retention time. As I already mentioned, this is the time for which materials went in the digester. And for wet digestion, it ranges from 30 to 50 days. Again, it depends on the other parameters, like what is the temperature inside the digester and what is the pH value. And of course, the other parameters, that is
hello, Rajani sir.
Yeah. There was a power cut.
am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, audible.
Okay. So I was talking about the affecting parameters which affect the anaerobic digestion process. So the next is the hydraulic retention time. This is the time for which materials find in the digester, and it ranges from 30 to 50 days for wet digestion. Next is the CN ratio, and these some essential nutrients are required for the bacterial growth. So we need to maintain CN ratio. Like the favorable ratio is 20:1, which we have observed through our experiments in our lab level facilities. So there are some natural methods we have adopted for maintaining this CN ratio. Next is the dry matter. This is the amount of solid content present in the waste, and for cow dung it is from 2 to 15%. Next is the feed rate. This is the amount of organic waste fed per unit volume. So it depends upon the volume or the size of the biogas plant we are using. Like rest of the parameters I have already explained. So depending upon that, we need to maintain the feed rate. So these are the some raw materials which can be used or which have already tested, and their results are available in the open literature. So animal dung, poultry waste, plant waste, grass, weeds, etc. It's their specific application. Like water hyacinth is also very not good for the ecology. So water hyacinth, in fact, is having a good potential of biogas production. So it can be used along with other feedstock material to get the biogas. So likely we have other categories. We just have a look over this particular graph. So the vertical side we have the methane yield in meter cube per tons of organic dry matter. And on the right hand side, horizontal side, we have categorized in so many different feedstock materials. These are further, we have some tested substrates. They are available in open literature. So on the vertical side, we have biogas yield in meter cube per ton of organic dry matter. So like in first case, that is maize silage. So 202 meter cube of biogas can be produced with 1 ton of maize silage, but out of that 202, only 52% is the methane. So likely we can see in the last case, so liquid cattle manure is there. So 25 meter cube is only produced out of 1 ton of liquid cattle manure. But within that 25 meter cube, we have 60% methane. So we are more concerned with the methane content. So it has to be good value. Methane content should be more. So this is the lab level facility which we have helped at NIT. Just to explain the working, this is the water bath, and our glass digester is placed inside this water bath just to maintain the temperature inside this digester. So we are maintaining the temperature of this water with the help of PID. Okay. So this digester is having two necks. One neck is employed with data acquisition system, and another probe in the same neck is the pH meter, digital pH meter. Then in the vertical neck we have stepper motor controlled stirrer basically, just to remove or just to break the scum produced over the surface of the slurry. Scum is like a thick layer, like you have observed over the milk, goat milk. Okay, so likely it is required to be broken periodically so that anaerobic digestion doesn't affect. So this we are doing, and the proper mixing of the slurry is also maintained with the help of this stirrer, and the gas produced is taken out through this neck, and it is going to the gas holder. After that, it is going to the gas flow meter, and it is finally analyzed what are the different constituents. So these are the water baths. One is the bigger one with two glass digesters of around 3 liters, and there is another water bath as well, which is equipped with single digester. Okay, all are employed with this stepper motor controlled stirrers, and they are having all the facilities as I explained in the schematic diagram. Okay. So these are the biogas analyzers through which we can analyze the biogas and the constituents of the biogas. These are the bags, biogas holders basically, where we can store the biogas. And as you can see, they are inflated. And we have even conducted the flame test with these bags. Okay. And these are the pH meters. This is the data acquisition system. and all the observations can be seen through this laptop. So through this these experimental facilities, we have developed some mathematical models. So people from this background must be aware of modified Gompertz model or Gompertz model. So Gompertz model basically suggests the estimation of methane yield only. Okay. So P is the cumulative methane yield in this particular Gompertz model, which this Gompertz has devised, where P is the cumulative methane yield, M is the highest methane yield, and Vm is the highest methane production rate. Alpha is the phase lag, D is the anaerobic digestion time, and E is some constant. It is having some value 2.7182. So this is about the Gompertz model, and there are so many limitations associated with the Gompertz model, and we have devised these mathematical models to work out with this molecular mass or weight of biogas, volume of the biogas, and volume of methane. So this is very much appreciable by the reviewers, and we have published these relations in some international journals, and one can refer these our papers for more details of these models. As you can see, we have compared this Gompertz model along with our model as well as the experiments we have conducted through the experimental facility. Okay, so on vertical side we have cumulative methane yield, methane production in milliliters, and on right hand side we have hydraulic retention time. So Gompertz model is the average value is given by the Gompertz model, and through our mathematical model the values you can see they are not so linear, so there are some variations, and practically so they are in close proximity with the like Gompertz model, but I would say they are the better values. So as you can see through this graph, the methane production per day in milliliters can be seen where the Gompertz only suggests the average value. So this is the straight line only. But the actual variation of the methane production is like taken out or worked out with the help of our developed mathematical model as well as the experiments. So they are in like same fashion, almost similar fashion. Okay, this is the experimental facility which is developed under the project funded by SERB, Government of India. So this is basically a non-conventional air conditioning system. On the left-hand side, we have the experimental test facility. Sorry, the whole facility is the experimental one. The left-hand side is the indoor unit of a non-conventional air conditioning system. So this is basically a non-conventional air conditioning system. This has been in national news also in nowadays or a few days back. So this is basically a non-conventional air conditioning system which works on basically the solar energy and the biogas. And the biogas is produced with the help of this green colored biogas digester plant, which is of a 2-meter cube capacity. And the hostel waste is being used in this particular biogas plant. So in the daytime when the sunshine hours are there, the solar energy is used to operate this air conditioning system, and while in the non-sunshine hours, the biogas or the bioenergy is being utilized to operate this conventional air conditioning system. So the working basically can be understood with the help of this psychrometry. People from mechanical or some people from civil also must be aware of psychrometry and this the variation. Like initially, generally the same cycle applies for the solid desiccant systems also, like the desiccant wheel or the enthalpy wheel. You must be aware of. So in that the same component, that is the desiccant wheel, works as a regenerator and a dehumidifier. Okay, so the lower part is the dehumidifier and the upper part is the regenerator. So the ambient air is entered through the dehumidifier first. The air is dehumidified from 6 to 7. The air is dehumidified. So these are the relative humidity lines. This is the dry bulb temperature. On the right hand side, it will move and it ranges from 0 to 60 or maybe above. And on the these lines, curved lines, are the relative humidity lines. So the 6 to 7 process is the dehumidification process. So once the ambient air is dehumidified, so in air conditioning, we used to deal with the two types of loads. One is the sensible load and another is the latent load. So the latent load is taken care of by this dehumidifier. And in our case, in the setup I have shown in the previous slide, is working on some liquid desiccant materials. Okay, we are testing some desiccant materials, liquid desiccant materials, and the combination is also we are trying with the different combinations of different liquid desiccant materials. So desiccant material is basically any material which is having affinity with moisture or water. So it absorbs the moisture. So latent load is taken care of by the dehumidifier. Okay, so 6 to 7 is the dehumidification process, and 7 to 8 is the sensible heating, sensible cooling. So 6 to 7 is the dehumidification process. So then we have the 8 to 9, we have the evaporative cooler we have employed, where the little humidity will be given. So 7 to 8 is the sensible cooling, 8 to 9 is the evaporative cooling. Okay, where the little humidity will be increased and the temperature will be lowered, as in case of desert coolers we used to observe. Okay, so then we have 9 to 1 is the room, the air is entered into the room where it will take the sensible load. The heat is taken care and heat is taken up by the material, the air, and then 1 to 2 is the evaporative cooler again. So same evaporative cooler can be used for both the processes, like 8 to 9 and 1 to 2. And then we have 2 to 3, that is the heat exchanger is there. So this heat exchanger, where it was giving the sensible cooling during 7 to 8%, now it is the same heat is being taken by this same process in the same heat exchanger through 2 to 3 process. So this is just the opposite process, that is the sensible heating process. Then we have 3 to 4, sometimes additional heat is required. So additional heater is required. HTR is the heater, additional heater, just to ensure that there is no more humidity is available or moisture is available inside the desiccant material. And then we have 4 to 5, that is the regeneration. So in regeneration, we used to regenerate the liquid desiccant material, where we will release the moisture taken up by the desiccant material. So this is just a schematic of both the dehumidification and regeneration process used in the experimental setup in the previous slides. Just the reactions are opposite. And I was discussing about the removing out of the unwanted gases. So like we have developed this small facility at NIT Kurukshetra with the help of some intern students of Government Engineering College Bikaner, and they have done a very good work with my instructions, and within just 20 days they have developed this small unit, scrubbing unit. So initially the gas is taken out of the green colored biogas plant, which I have shown in the previous slides, and it is pumped with the help of this small pedal pump lying in the left hand side. This one is the pump, and the gas is pressurized to flow through these chambers. Okay, the gas is transferred into the these chambers. First chamber is basically the filter, where any particle in the biogas is removed, or they are filtered. The gas is filtered. the gas is transferred into the second chamber, in which aqueous solution of sodium carbonate is filled with rusted steel wool, which simultaneously react with hydrogen sulfide and remove the hydrogen sulfide, that is H2S, from the biogas. So as I already mentioned, the H2S is very harmful. It is required to be removed out. So the H2S is scrubbed out with the help of this chemical scrubbing unit. Then in the third chamber, the gas is transferred into the third chamber, where aqueous solution of calcium hydroxide is filled with and in the third cylinder or the chamber, and which reacts with the CO2 and removes it from the biogas. So H2S and CO2 both are removed. Finally, there are some other gases also, but these are the major unwanted gases or the harmful gases. And finally, we need to remove the moisture from the biogas. So in the final, the last chamber, it is filled with the silica gel and steel wool, and which absorbs the moisture from the biogas. So finally, the gas is purified and is available to be used in the like cylinders or engines as well. So these are basically basic types of biogas plants. And first is fixed dome type of biogas plant, then floating gas holder type of biogas plant. Thirdly, we have bag type of biogas plant. Just to apprise you about the basics working of the biogas plant. This is the working of a fixed dome type of biogas plant. So main component is the digester plant. This is the middle one, and the slurry is prepared in this slurry tank or mixing tank, and it is supplied to the digester tank. And after digestion, the gas is produced, which is taken out through this middle pipe, and the digestate is moved to the this outlet chamber. Or then it moves to the overflow tank. Okay, so this is the basic scheme of the fixed dome type. In fixed dome means the volume is fixed, but the pressure is not fixed. So generally, like in heating application or any cooking application, we need to have the gas at a constant pressure. So we have another type of arrangement that is known as floating drum type of. But before that, we have some benefits of biogas, this fixed dome type of biogas plant. So as you can see, the cost is very low because of its simple construction. There is no moving part, and rusting is not there because it is constructed of the like concrete materials only, and they are fabricated underground, and which protects it from the physical damage and saves the space as well. Okay, so I was talking about the floating drum. So in floating drum, the volume is not fixed, but the pressure is fixed, which is required in the continuous application. So rest of the working is same as I explained with the fixed dome type. So this is the floating drum type. Only the difference is that the drum floats over the main digester plant. So this is a holder. It acts as a holder as well, and the plus points are there. Like it is very easy to understand, and it provides a constant pressure, and it stores the gas at constant volume, and it immediately recognizable by the position of the drum. Okay, so like in my case, also we have designed the system of this biogas plant in green color. I have shown in the experimental facility. This was also the same type. So the indication of like the level of the drum indicates the production of the biogas, which you cannot recognize in the first case, that is the fixed dome type. So in floating drum type, we can easily recognize the production of the biogas with the position of the drum. Well, likely we have the third type, that is the bag type, and they are like more efficient and no leakage is there because there are no mating parts, and there is no chance of leakage. That's why, because in anaerobic digestion, the process should be anaerobic completely, like it should be, there should not be air entering into the plant from the atmosphere. Anaerobic means absence of air. So for constructing a biogas plant, we need to have these different parts. First is the mixing tank, then inlet tank, then digester, outlet tank, and overflow tank. So just have a look over it. I already have explained about these parts. Utilization, generally we look for biogas to be used as a cooking fuel. So for 2 cubic meter of capacity of biogas plant is sufficient to provide cooking for a family of about 5 persons. And in my facility also it was of the same capacity. And of course, we can use the biogas in the lighting. I'm working on this area also to have some products of mantle lamps. So silk mantle lamps can be used. Biogas can be used to lit up these silk mantle lamps. And for power generation, we can use the biogas after upgradation of the biogas. Upgradation means the purification, and unwanted gases can be removed before using it into the engines. So 100% of 100% of the biogas can be used. Like any engine can be operated with the help of 100% of the biogas if we are having more than 90 or 95% methane is there. Okay. So transport fuel, of course, it can be used in the cylinders, and people are working in this area as well. IIT Delhi is doing very well. They are running their vehicle. Wagoner is there, which is employed with this bio CNG, compressed biogas cylinder. So this is also known as compressed CBG, compressed biogas. Okay. So these are the general energy calculation for biogas plant. So suppose there is a rule like around average values there. Suppose we have 1 ton of biomass. So with the 1 ton of biomass, we can generate around 50 normal meter cubes of biogas. So with 1 kilogram, we have 0.05 meter cube of biogas. If you want to know about the total production of the biogas, it should be like in terms of cow dung, because we are having in kilograms. So multiplied with this factor, we can estimate the total value of the biogas which can be produced with the help of this available biomass. So suppose just an illustration, like for calculation of 4 animals, and each is producing 8 kilograms of dung, and we are successfully to collect all, and we are available with 8 kilograms, and we are having 4 animals, so we are having total 32 kilograms. So total gas can be estimated by multiplying 32 with this factor 0.05. So we are available with 1.6 meter cubes. So this is the average value, general value. We can have more or less values depending upon the type of feedstock material or the cow dung or other combination we are using. So generally it is the general value. 1 meter cube corresponds to 19 megajoule. So again, if the methane quantity is more, we can have the more value. If the methane is less, we can have the less value of this energy. So with this 1.6 meter cube of biogas multiplied with 19, we can have 30 megajoules, general value, like average value. So if we want to convert it into kilowatt hours, we can have it divided into 0.6. So we have 8.3 kilowatt hours electrical energy. So suppose if you want to convert it, the biogas into electrical energy, so generally it is assumed that 65% of the energy is wasted in the mechanical and other losses. So we are left with the 35% only. So 35% of the previous one, that is 8.3, the 2.91 kilowatt hours, which is sufficient enough to run the 2 bulbs of 60 watts and 1 fan of 80 watts. So this is the calculation of cooking. So generally, medium stove uses 9 megajoule of energy per hour. So suppose we are having 3 animals, and each is producing 8 kilograms of dung. So we are having 24 kilograms, and multiplying it with 0.05, then we are having 1.2 meter cube of biogas with the available biomass. So this will last for 2.5 hours. This is just an illustration, just to have the estimation of the energy. So next route, the first route was the gasification route. The main processes involved are the drying, pyrolysis, oxidation, combustion, and reduction. So the gasification, basically, we need to have the gasification efficiency first. How much is the efficiency of the gasification? Then only we can go for the this particular route. Otherwise, we can go for the open incineration and other options are also there. So suppose there are some feedstock materials, and we should devise first the gasification efficiency of the system we are using for the gasification. So this is just how to calculate the gasification efficiency. Just have a look over it. And these are the like we already have tested some feedstock materials like pistachio shells, walnut shells. They have been like tested. They have been tested. Okay, so these are the heating values of. These are the heating values of. These are the main constituents of the producer gas: methane, CO, and H2. So these are the ranges, and these are the like application of the different types of gasifier where we should use. And these are the different classifications of the gasifiers: fixed bed and fluidized bed. In fixed bed, we have post draft, downdraft, updraft, and in fluidized we have bubbling bed and circulating bed. So where to use these depending upon the type, heat input, and we have different types of like thermal input. Depending upon the thermal input, on the bottom side you can have a look over the scale where to utilize what particular kind of technology. So as I already mentioned, there are 4 zones and the 4 processes. So likely we have the 4 zones in a particular digester. I will explain with the help of the photographic view in the end. So in drying zone, the temperature ranges from only 100 to 200 degrees C, and generally the moist feedstock is supplied. We can ensure, of course, we can do it, but the energy input will be more in case we supply the feedstock material in the pure dried form. But generally, the feedstock material has some moisture, so we need to we have the only option to supply the most moist feedstock into the gasifier along with heat. So this is the main reaction in the drying zone. So the products are drying, dry feedstock and H2O. Okay. Water is separated. Then in the second phase, that is pyrolysis, the biomass is decomposed at temperature between 200 to 700 degrees C in the absence of air or oxygen. So volatile matter from the biomass is released, and a mixture of gases like hydrogen, CO2 along with charcoal and tar are produced. Depending upon the type of the gasifier used, the gases produced during the pyrolysis may or may not go through the zone of oxidation. Okay, so it can skip the next zone. So next zone is, or the next process is the oxidation or combustion zone. Like the solid carbonized biomass reacts with the oxygen present in the air to form this carbon and heat. And then we have the hydrogen oxidized to produce water. CO along with heat is produced as a result of partial oxidation of carbon. And these are the reactions. You just have a look over these reactions in the oxidation zone. Then after oxidation, we have the reduction zone. The heat of combustion is utilized in this process. The temperature is ranging from 800 to 1000 degrees C, and these are the main reactions. So as I already mentioned, the CO2, H2, these are the main constituents. CO2, H2, and CH4. These are the main constituents of the producer gas. So finally, we are getting these products. So what are the different parameters which affect the gasification process? We have the temperature. First is the temperature, and it depends like the rate of reaction and what are the composition of the producer gas we are going to have after gasification process. It all depends on the temperature we are maintaining inside the gasifier, and of course the rate of reaction and the volume of ash, high temperature, like if we are having high temperature, it will give tar cracking and gives high yield of hydrogen and CO. So hydrogen, as we are aware, already aware that hydrogen is having very good, or I should say that highest heating value or calorific value, and high temperature also reduces the hydrocarbons, production of hydrocarbons and CO2. Okay, so that's why the highest temperature ranges are also always preferred. And other gasifying agent, we can have air only, we can have only oxygen, we can have CO2 with steam. So we have different options depending upon the type of feedstock material and the type of or the quality of the producer gas uh, coming out of the gasification unit. Okay, so quality depends on these agents. Pressure, high pressure limits the discharge of volatile matter and results in lesser porosity, and hence the reactivity of fuel molecules decreases. So pressure is also a very important parameter. And the moisture, if exceeds 30%, then pyrolysis is incomplete, results in a low heating value. And biomass particle size, of course, it depends the quantity or the quality of the producer gas we are going to have after gasification. So small size particles gives more heat and reaction rate is very high, which results in high gasification efficiency. Okay, equivalence ratio is actually the ratio of actual air flow to the metric air flow ratio. So this is also one of the important parameters. So we need to maintain this ratio. So this is just a schematic diagram of the experimental facility we have developed at NIT Kurukshetra. So this left hand side, we have the gasification unit up to here. So after fabric filter, the 6th number, we are having the producer gas generated out of this whole arrangement, which I already explained. This is the gasification unit. These are the different types of filters. Okay, this is the flare unit, and through flare we can observe, we can see the quality of the producer gas with the help of the color of the flare. If it is very reddish, it means the heating value is very good. So through this flare, we can observe the quality of the producer gas. And after that, there are certain filters. Okay, and then after filtration, the gas is directly supplied to the engine, which is we have installed inside the lab, my lab, thermal engineering lab, and the internal combustion engine, variable compression ratio, a single cylinder diesel engine is operated with the help of this producer gas, and we have successfully saved around 58.8% of the diesel. So this engine is operated with diesel, and rest is the supporting arrangement, control panel and all this dynamometer. So this is the actual facility. So this is the downdraft gasifier, 40 kilowatt electrical capacity, and these are the different filters. And this is the flare I was talking about. And this was the part of another project. As you can see, the level of this floating drum, so it has been it has been raised. So it means at this particular point of time when we captured this image, so the level of this drum is very high. So the production of the gas was very high at that particular point of time. So I was discussing about the gasification. The producer gas is produced inside this digester, and after filtration and through flare test, the gas is going to the fabric filter, and finally the gas produced here and filtered here is going to the engine, which you can see inside. This is the green pipe which is coming out of this lab. Through this green pipe, the producer gas is coming and directly supplied to the engine, okay, along with diesel. So we have experimentally uh, saved and we have experimentally tested this producer gas on this engine, and we have saved around 58.8% of diesel. Okay. And this arrangement is we have eddy current dynamometer attached with this just to have the performance of this engine, and rest is the I'm not going into the details of the engine right now. So these are the other recent studies in the area of utilizing the biomasses. Okay, so how we can utilize the biomass? Just have a look of over this particular slide to just to know about the recent applications of this particular area. Okay, even this mechanism of carbon partitioning towards starch and triglycerol under nitrogen stress through whole transcriptome analysis. So this is the level where it is going right now. So transcriptome analysis is the study of transcriptome of the complete set of RNA transcripts that are produced by the genome under specific circumstances or in a specific cell using high throughput methods. So transcriptome techniques are particularly useful in identifying the functions of genes. So this is the level where the research is being carried on nowadays, and utilization of PUMIs for improving biogas production from poultry manure by anaerobic digestion. So PUMIs is a very light and porous volcanic rock formed when gas-rich growth of glassy lava solidifies rapidly. So we have different applications just to enhance the biogas production rate. We are utilizing these methods. Methane and hydrogen production from cotton waste by dark fermentation under anaerobic and micro-aerobic conditions. So, in my previous slides, I mentioned the different parameters. I didn't discuss about the darkness. So, darkness is also a very important parameter. So, they have there is an application of darkness that is also an important parameter. So combination of physiochemical operations and algal culture as a new bioprocess for olive mill wastewater treatment. So this algal culture is also very much important nowadays, and people are working at an extent, and not only in the area of the biogas production, but in the area of this purification of wastewater. Okay, of the wastewater treatment. Activated carbon derived from tea waste. There is an application of any organic waste material can be used, as I already mentioned, for the production of biogas. So outdoor cultivation of green microalga in mini pond system under batch and fed batch modes in uh, like integrated low dose sequential phosphate addition, which is known as LDSPA strategy for biodiesel production. So that was the third route, which I have not discussed in detail. Okay. So catholyte is sorry. This is the microbial fuel cell, and nowadays the research is being carried on this particular area as well. So catholyte is being used as a part of electrolyte, which is on the cathode side of an electrochemical cell, and it has been effectively divided into two compartments in this particular case. Catholites have various uses, including reducing surface tension of water and hence conditioning of water to improve oil production in wells. Okay, so microbial fuel cells have been extensively used for electrical generation, and it has so many applications. Okay, so this particular setup explores the potential of agricultural waste to be used in such sustainable and eco-friendly technology to produce bioelectricity. So what are the benefits associated with biomass gasification? Of course, the power will be available at affordable rates because as I already mentioned, we are converting the biogas using the bio wastes only, which are creating the environment pollutions. Okay, so the bio waste which we use to spread all around and which are available all around in specifically in India, they are creating the environment pollution. Okay, so we can reduce the environment pollution as well as we can reduce the power as well at affordable rates, and it reduces the pollution as I already mentioned. Okay? And and it reduces the time while collecting the firewood, and this particular point is applicable to the rural areas where people used to collect the firewood for their using as a cooking fuel, and it reduces the reliance on fossil fuels. Of course, the fossil fuels are having sufficient quantity and they are depleting at an alarming rate. They need to be preserved. We have so many options. Renewable sources are too much available, and just to apply the best the best of the technology to utilize these renewable sources. That is the need of the hour, and it saves the environment. It reduces the deforestation. This particular point also is applicable for the rural areas, and it improves the living standard in rural areas. And I would say not only in the rural areas but in urban areas as well. In urban areas, the proper waste management is not done. So we need to be sensitized, and it reduces the global warming. Of course, it has effect on the environment and ecology. It produces the good quality enriched manure to improve soil fertility. Of course, as I already mentioned, that is the beauty of this process, the gasification. Everything has some circular economy you must play. So every product is useful. So effective and convenient way for sanitary disposal of organic waste improve the hygienic conditions. Of course, as a smokeless domestic fuel, it reduces the incidence of eye and lung diseases. Again, applicable to the rural areas. So these are just the glimpses of the facilities available at NIT Kurukshetra, and recently I have developed this lab, and these facilities are available for consultancy also. So this is the single cylinder multi-fuel VCR engine, which we have dedicated for the experiments to be conducted, and we have already conducted some experiments on biofuels, the blends of biofuels, and the same engine is used for petrol as well as for diesel with some mechanical attachments, different mechanical attachments. So we have operated the same engine with diesel and diesel blends and petrol and petrol blends. This is the single cylinder VCR diesel engine, same engine, which has been used with the producer gas being generated through the gasifier or the gasification facility. This is the multi-cylinder petrol engine with open ECU. The previous one was also with open ECU, and the ECU is open means we can program the different parameters or the inputs. And this is the engine test bed, which is having dedicated units. Some dedicated units are there, facilities, and this is a very special unit, test bed. Any kind of engine can be tested on this test bed, and there is some coolant conditioning unit specifically employed with this particular facility. Okay, so any cooling or coolant material can be tested with this facility. There is a engine. This one is the coolant conditioning unit in the right hand side, and this is the engine blow by, and AVL made engine blow by. This is Edison Dynamo. Right now it is equipped with 4-cylinder diesel engine. Maruti Swift diesel engine is at this point of time is fastened over this test bed, and this is the calorimeter, and this is the exhaust meter. Exhaust pressure is also can be measured. So there are very dedicated units are there, and different specific tests can be conducted over this engine test bed. Like whole performance analysis can be done on this particular facility. So, and this is the steam turbine testing, which Professor Satans was asking about in the starting. So this was made available with the help of TKIP fund, TKIP 3, and this is right now diesel operated, but in the near future I will be operating with the help of the producer gas. I will be operating with this facility, the steam turbine testing, with the help of producer gas. which I'll try to produce with the help of some waste materials available inside the campus only. So these are the other facilities which are available, and for consultancy as well, and one can just go through the website of NIT Kurukshetra, and under the research and consultancy tab, they will find the details of all the facilities available for consultancy. So this is all about my presentation. Over to the organizing team. We'll stop sharing now. If there is any question or query, you may ask.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this informative session. Now, I request to the participants, if they have a query, please write in the chat box or may directly ask to the speaker.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. Hello.
Hello. Yes, yes, sir. Please introduce yourself and sir, please ask the question.
Sir, before 18 years, I have fixed dome biogas at my home, Bikaner. Now filled up by soil, not in use. Can I use again? And I have 2 cows. Is it sufficient for running? Sir, other is how much cow dung required for start first?
How much? What was the last question? What was the last line you?
How much cow dung, sir?
How much cow dung required for start first?
Okay. Okay. First, you need to know the cubic capacity of the biogas plant.
Yeah.
Okay. And you need to like flush out all the residues. Okay, before using it. Of course, you can use it. So, well, like fixed dome type of biogas plant can be used, but there are some plus and some cons are always there with this particular kind of facility. Okay, we need to see the facility first, and then we can comment on that. Next thing, you asked about the quantity of biogas. Like you need to first know the cubic capacity, and like around 40% you can fill with the slurry. Okay, slurry is again the composition of water and your feedstock material, that is maybe cow dung. Okay, so 60% of the volume you can leave for the biogas or the proper survival and growth of the bacteria inside the digestive plant.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Participants, if you have any more query, please write in the chat box and directly ask to the speaker. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Ravi.
Yes, sir. Sir, as I scanned the chat box, there is no more queries by the participants. So now I request Dr. O.P. Jhakkar, sir, to share his views. O.P. Jhakkar, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajni sir, for your very nice and excellent session. And you have nicely presented the biogas digestions and the energy calculations and the parameter affected the digestions. And then further, you have nicely presented the gasifications and the parameter affected for the gasifications and the heating value calculations for the gas. And you have shown very good experimental setup at your institute in the department for the single cylinder VCR engine and other the producer gas based steam power plants. So very good experimental setup you have in your laboratory. So thank you so much, sir, for your very nice and very wonderful session. Thank you, and thanks to all participants for your patience and the interaction with the Dr. Rajneesh Kumar. Thank you so much. So over to Dr. Ravi.
Thank you, Dr. Jakhar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I request Dr. H.D. Chalak, sir, to share his view. Chalak, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, today's session expert, Dr. Rajneesh, for sharing his research output. And I think the complete setup, how he is taking efforts in is from the day it's starting his project work. So we are seeing the output also, and we try to implement the things in the NIT campus also. So thank you once again, Rajneesh sir. And I'll hand over the session
Thank you,
back to
Chalak.
the. I'll hand it. I'll pass the things to the Dr.
Yes, sir.
for further process.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I request Dr. Praveen, sir, to conclude the session. Praveen, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was a very nice lecture given by Dr. Rajneesh, sir. And actually, this is one of the important the biogas that is being actually produced is actually a very useful component for as a fuel purpose. And the slurry that is obtained from these biogas plants. Hello, am I audible?
Audible, sir.
And the slurry that is actually obtained from the biogas plant is actually also used for the production of an innovative kind of manure that is actually called as phosphate-rich organic manure, in which rock phosphate is added, and the P2O5 content is calculated and its carbon nitrogen ratio is maintained. Bikaner, which is actually having a very large number of woolen industries, produce a large number of waste that is rich in nitrogen. So instead of using the other sources of nitrogen, the wool waste is actually combined with these biogas slurry from the biogas plant, and the combination of a new kind of you can say manure called as PROM, that is the phosphate-rich organic manure, is obtained, which is another innovative method comparable to diammonium phosphate used by the fertilizers. Now, our college has been working on this project also, that is production, and we have been taking guidance from NIT Kurukshetra also regarding the biogas. And recently, our students, the students of Engineering College Bikaner, have actually started biogas plant which was not operating since last 10 years in a village called Bhinasa. So it is actually the society where we get associated and try to solve out such kind of problems, and such kind of ways are being carried out, and then really success is seen. And it is actually the help of NIT Kurukshetra that we are capable of doing such kind of experiment with the societies. So once again, thank you very much to Dr. Rajneesh sir, to Professor Satan sir, for actually really taking very hard to organize such kind of these training programs where the students, the faculty, and the society themselves are benefited. So once again, thank you, and thanks a lot for this. And now I hand over the session back to Dr. Ravi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And once again, I thanks all the participants and our eminent speakers of the today's sessions. Now with this note, I end the meeting. Okay, thanks all. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.